my parents senior year at Texas State. I was born and raised in Uvalde, Texas. Nobody knew what I was before, but on May 24, 2022, now everyone knows nationwide. Uvalde is where my 10-year-old sister, Tessa Marinaldo, was massacred in her classroom. My sister lost her life in the safest place a child could be, or what I used to believe was the safest. It hurts that I can never do anything to bring her back. I did not get to see her grow anymore. She will forever be 10. I will never see her graduate high school, hear about her first kiss or heartbreak. I cannot ask her to become any longer. My children will never have that. And worst of all, I will forever have to live with the pain of wondering how she must have felt while taking her last breaths. All this suffering because an 18-year-old took my sister from me. And I'm angry, I'm hurting, and I'm dying without her. I was once you. I was happy, living my college life, listening to others talk about the tragedies and hardships they face. I had no interest in politics or sharing my beliefs. If I did, it was only to fit in with those around me. I had no intentions of being political. It took me losing my sister for me to understand the gravity of actually being away. Of the people who were putting. Something tragic like what happened to me should not make your decision to become an active voter easier. So I'm telling you today, vote before you become me. We are the future. We are the generation that can make change. My voice today and forever will be strong for my sister Tess, but our voices together can be stronger for our children, our teachers, women's rights, gun laws, and people will fight your fight too. I'm proud and honored to introduce the new State of Texas Governor, Beto O'Rourke.
Such an amazing job getting started. Focus on the things that are most important, not to Democrats, not to independents, not to Republicans, but to the people of Texas. And then Faith Lund, who, along with her dad Sherry and her mom Veronica, and these other extraordinary families in Uvalde, who could be forgiven, we would all understand if they didn't want to show their faces in public, they didn't want to make a stand, they didn't want to talk about the most painful thing, literally, that a human being can experience. But they do it nonetheless, knowing full well they will not bring back Tess and the other 18 Americans, we're Texans, and we're human beings. And we're going to treat one another with the dignity and respect that we all deserve. Because we and seeing you here today in numbers that we've never seen before, we have such a great problem. And that is, there were more people who wanted to come in than there were seats available. In fact, more than twice the number. We made a commitment to all those who are outside right now, who are watching or listening. Just meeting in here, we will go outside to be with those who could not get in. We're going to stay here until the last person has a chance to say hello or take a picture or be part of something really special. That extraordinary thing is that we're going to win this election on the night of the election to make their own decisions about what everyone here, we prioritize the lives of our children ahead of the interests of the NRA. That we have the backs of our public school educators, classroom teachers, librarians, and we treat them with the respect that they deserve as well. They're leading the profession right now by the thousands across the state of Texas, hounded out of the classroom because the governor wants them to be afraid of teaching the full true history of the state of Texas, or turn in the parent of that child who happens to be transgender, or the fact that they are underpaid on average by $7,500 a year. So what if you win this election, pay every teacher what they're worth so they don't have to work a second or third job. Allow them to not only teach the full true story and history of Texas, but allow them the time to connect with those kids that right now is consumed by preparing for high stakes, high pressure, standardized tests that in no way effectively measure the potential of that child. So when you cancel the STAR test in the state of Texas, we're going to be there for those of you who already have, currently are, or will down the road choose to serve this country in uniform. You comprise fewer than 1% since 9/11 who have been willing to put their lives on the line for the lives of everybody else in the United States of America. And despite the great wealth that we have as a country, the fact that Texas is the 9th largest economy on the face of the planet today, tonight we're safe and warm and comfortable in dorm rooms or hotels. There will be hundreds of veterans sleeping on the sides of roads, sleeping under bridges, sleeping on park benches, unable to get the care and the help they need that could literally make their lives better and even save their lives. So a couple of things that I propose, that we as Texans pay any price to make sure that every returning veteran has that roof over their head. It's whatever capacity that they choose, finishing their education here, starting a small business, running for office. I just want to make sure that they're healthy enough and well enough to be able to get that done. And something that I've heard from some of you who've been to the VA, whether it's at Audie Murphy in San Antonio or a clinic closer to San Marcos, is that if you're lucky enough to get in, all too often you're prescribed an opioid, to which you fear you may become addicted. And that addiction might very well mean your death, as it has for tens of thousands of our fellow Americans. And you say to yourself, you know what? There's this other thing that I can use. But I've become a criminal in the eyes of the law, even though it alleviates my symptoms, allows me to sleep, restores my appetite. For that veteran, and for every other adult, by the way, who just wants to be able to do for themselves what they need to be better, we're going to make sure that we legalize marijuana. Here's something championing for justice. She's worked in criminal justice reform. She's listened to those most impacted. And that means members of law enforcement. That means those who've been incarcerated. That means those in our communities who understand there has got to be a better way. I'll give you an example. Texans of all races and ethnicities use marijuana, cannabis, at the same rate, right? And from your response, it sounds like that rate is a lot. That's not the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is that we Texans may all use it at the same rate, but disproportionately, it is black and brown Texans who more often than not are stopped and frisked and fined. And those who have that conviction on their record, it becomes very hard to get a job because you have to check a box on every employment application form saying that you have that conviction. Much harder to get a student loan or a small business loan to start that enterprise that's going to hire other people here in San Marcos. So, given that impact that we've seen disproportionately, especially among black and brown Texans in this state, I also propose that we expunge the arrest records of everyone who's ever seen. Well and win in this election is because all of us here, Republican, Democrat, Independent alike, we believe in this democracy. And now, that may seem like a ridiculous thing to say. We live in Texas, in the United States of America, 246 years in. This is supposed to be the world's greatest democracy. So why do you even have to say it out loud? Here's why. This state is the hardest in the union in which to cast a ballot or get your name on the rolls in order to be registered to vote in the first place. Now, those tactics of suppression and intimidation are not aimed at people who look like me, as they always have been since the end of Reconstruction. They target communities of color, especially African Americans in this state. They target their religion. They target those with disability. 7 million of our fellow Texans did not vote in the 2020 election, arguably the most important presidential contest in our lifetimes. Not because they're lazy, not because they lack any love for this democracy, but because they literally, effectively, functionally were drawn out. Let me explain. 750 polling places have been closed in Texas over the last decade. That's twice the number of the next closest state, and remember, we're the fastest growing in the union. Most of those polling place closures have occurred in the fastest growing black and brown neighborhoods. I promise you, on election day, November 8th, we're going to see images beamed from Houston, Texas, right outside of Texas Southern University, one of our great historically black colleges, and those lines will stretch 6 hours deep. And part of you is so damn proud that anyone would be willing to wait 6 hours to cast their ballot. But that pride is soon overwhelmed by shame, that we force this indignity upon any of our fellow Texans, and we must ask ourselves, for every person willing to and able to wait for 6 hours, how many are working a $7.25 an hour job, or make that two $7.25 an hour jobs? How many taking care of the folks just trying to survive do not have time for this stuff because of all those closures in the surrounding neighborhood? Well, there's an answer to all of this. One, we've got to make sure that we win this election. But two, when we do, we must make it easier for eligible citizens to get on the roll. So imagine automatic voter registration. You turn 18, you are ready to go. We have citizen-led redistricting commissions that overcome the And I have not had a chance to ask Erin how she feels about this one, but what if we replaced Confederate Heroes Day as a state holiday with Election Day as a state holiday? We've got to get past the
the other big reason that I know that we're going to win. And that is that we are running against the worst governor in the United States. One month ago, the most extreme abortion ban in America went into effect here in Texas. The ban begins at conception. There is no exception for rape, and there is no exception for incest. At the epicenter of a maternal mortality crisis that is claiming the lives of black women at 3 times the rate of white women in the state of Texas right now. And I'll tell you what, there are so many people who approach me with incredibly personal and very often painful stories about pregnancies that they've had, very complicated, non-viable fetuses. Doctors who say, you know what? I know that you will not have a successful pregnancy. I know that you might very well die if you continue to try to carry this to term, but I cannot help you yet under this current law until you are on death's door. So functionally and effectively, not only is there not an exception for rape or incest, there's not even one for the mother's life. So what are we going to do about this? And it can tempt you, and especially for women and for girls in this state, to despair and to wonder how in the world can we overcome this. 50 years ago, abortion was just as illegal in the state of Texas as it is today. But no one from outside of the state rode to the rescue of the women of Texas. In fact, truth be told, it was the women of Texas who rode to the rescue of the rest of the country. Jane Roe of Roe versus Wade, her 2 attorneys, Texas women successfully prevailed upon an all-male United States Supreme Court to win protection for the right to privacy, to make these very personal decisions without intrusion or intervention from our government. It stood the test of time for nearly half a century. So here's my thinking and logic on this one. If it was Texas women who won the day in 1973, it will be Texas women who win it back in 2000. It is, as of this week, been 19 weeks since we lost those 19 beautiful children, just like Tess, in Uvalde, Texas, and their 2 extraordinary teachers. And in those 19 weeks, our governor, the most powerful man in the state, has yet to lift a finger to make it any less likely that any other child in any other community, in any other classroom, will meet the same fate as those children did in Uvalde on the 24th of May of this year. That, by the way, is not lost on those children. We're raising 3 kids in El Paso, 15, a 14, and 11-year-old. And like every young person in Texas today, like every parent, we have plans for what to do when that day might very well arrive. As does every classroom teacher that I have met, especially after Uvalde. But it's not just Uvalde. It was Santa Fe High School in Galveston, Texas in 2018. It was the 23 people in my hometown who were gunned down on the 3rd of August 2019. The 8 who lost their lives in Midland, Odessa a month later. Sutherland Springs, 5 of the worst mass shootings in U.S. history taking place on this guy's watch just in the last 5 years. Gun violence today is the leading cause of death for children and teenagers in the state of Texas. We lead the nation in the number of school shootings. Now look, you either accept the premise that we are an inherently violent and murderous people, and I'm not about to believe that, or that there is something that we as human beings, as Texans, can do about this, that we can continue to defend the Second Amendment while doing a far better job of protecting the lives of those in our communities, especially the most precious among us, those kids 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, all the way up to 17, they literally, legally do not get a vote or a voice in this election, but through our actions and what we choose to do now at this moment of truth. After you sign up and join us as a volunteer, after we knock on the doors of our neighbors and classmates and friends and bring them into this election, after we win, here's some things that we can do that are consistent with a long, proud tradition of responsible gun ownership in the state of Texas. Number one, if you want to buy an AR-15 or an AK-47, why don't we raise the age from 18 to 21 at least? Now, that's not my idea. That's the idea that came from the parents and families in Uvalde, from the mayor and city council of Uvalde, from people across the political spectrum who just get that, look, this won't save every life, this won't avert every disaster, but it will save more, and it very well could have saved those lives in Uvalde 19 weeks ago. Add to that a red flag law that just says, look, if you've got the gun in your house and you're now threatening to use it against yourself, or to use it against your spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend, or to use it against some child in a classroom, law enforcement now will have due process to intervene before it's too late. That El Paso shooter who took the lives of 23 people in my hometown, his mom in Allen, Texas, called the Allen Police Department when his AK-47 came in, and she said, look, I have no idea what my son needs with this. It was originally designed for war. Its sole purpose is to kill other human beings. And she may have also signaled some other signs of distress in this young man's life. But because we don't have a red flag law on the books, the police now in Texas said, ma'am, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. You're on your own. Good luck and goodbye. He drove 650 miles with that weapon of war. And before he walked into that Walmart on that day, he posted a manifesto. He said that he had come to repel the invasion of Hispanics who were taking over this state. And then he walked into that Walmart and shot and killed anybody who looked Mexican to him, anyone who looked like an immigrant to him. Red flag law would have averted that disaster. And this last one, I mentioned Midland, Odessa earlier. This guy goes into a gun shop a month after the El Paso tragedy, tries to buy one of those AR-15s, doesn't pass the background check. Because as a gun store, they are required to, by federal law, to administer it. Good, it works. But because Texas does not have a universal background check, he's able to go buy that same firearm from a private seller, no questions asked. None of us the safer or the wiser for it. Used it against 8 people in that community who did not have to die, because all we have to do is the right thing. So let me hear it from you if you think that we can defend the Second Amendment and better protect the lives of those in our lives. 19 months ago, I actually was in San Marcos. I was seeing stories about my fellow Texans who were literally freezing in their homes. The temperature had dropped. And in the energy capital of the world, the lights stopped working. The heat no longer ran. The water stopped flowing because it was literally frozen in your pipes, in your dorm rooms, in your apartments, in your homes. People started to freeze to death in the state of Texas. We lost 700 human lives in this state. Folks who died of hypothermia, who froze to death in their beds because they couldn't pile enough blankets on their bodies. People who burned up because they set fire to their furniture, trying to keep themselves and their kids warm in their house, and the fire got out of control. Countless who died of carbon monoxide poisoning, not aware of the fact that running that engine in their garage was slowly poisoning them to death. Men, women, children, grandparents, veterans, across the state of Texas. And while that was happening, our governor, Greg Abbott, ordered the price of electricity pegged at its highest allowable rate. That meant that gas, which powers those turbines, soon started trading at 200 times what it had sold for the day before. His best buds, his top campaign contributors, their companies made $11 billion in profit over the course of 5 days while you were shivering and suffering and too many were dying. I mentioned that I was here because we started traveling the state, showing up everywhere for everyone, with so many other volunteers, never asking, can I see your immigration status, or who you voted for last time, or how you love, or to whom you pray, or none of those differences matter to any of us right here. I saw student leaders right here in San Marcos with shopping carts full of stuff at HEB, buying whatever they could to bring it back to dorm rooms, to make sure that their fellow students have the food, the water, the resources to survive. Many of you told me stories about doubling and tripling and quadrupling up because some of your friends and classmates could no longer survive in their dorm rooms and apartments. In that class that Serenity and I were in, there was a young student who went to go check on every person experiencing homelessness in this community to make sure that they got to a warming center. That's who we are at our best. And this is what I propose that we do to make sure that we get there for everyone going forward. After we win, let's fix the grid by winterizing and weatherizing every part of it. Let's connect our grid, which is called ERCOT, with the national grid so we can for that money, that $11 billion that was stolen from us, let's take those bastards to court and get every penny because this will anticipate some really nasty, negative things that you're going to hear. This disinformation intended to distract, deflect from the failures of the last 8 years that Greg Abbott has been in office. He's going to try to scare us about crime and about criminals. And look, this is a serious issue. Violent crime is up in the state of Texas. And if there is a sole purpose for the government, and a governor at that, is to keep us safe and secure in our homes and in our communities. But why is that violent crime taking place? We talked about gun violence earlier, the leading cause of death for kids and teenagers. There was a bill proposed the last legislative session that said that this license to carry a firearm program that we've had for a very long time, it just says, look, you want to carry a gun in public? We're cool with that. Just make sure we do a background check, we vet you, you get some proficiency, some firearms training before you carry that out on the street so that we know that you know how to use it, and extreme fringe of the legislature to do away with that program and replace it with something called permitless carry that just says, look, anyone can carry a gun in public now without a background check, without any training, without any vetting whatsoever. Just to put a number to it, over the last 6 years, law enforcement 38,000 times denied a license to carry to someone because they were deemed too dangerous to themselves or to the rest of us to have a gun in public. And so they begged him, police chiefs, sheriffs, deputies, officers, not to sign this into law. He turned his back on them. And now homicides are up 50% in the state of Texas. Unfortunately, more law enforcement have been gunned down in this state than in any other in the union so far.
Because you can find them!
So you couldn't make out what you said, but here's what we can do. Here's what we can do. Listen. Common sense, common ground, the ability to work with one another in common has to be able to prevail. So I mentioned those common sense measures, the background check, the red flag law, the raising the age to 21, restoring the license to carry program in the state of Texas, doing something about the fact that despite the governor who said that in answer to the question about what are you going to do about rape victims in an abortion bill that has no exception for rape, he said he would eliminate rape in the state of Texas. Today, more rapes have occurred in this state than any other state in the union, and that is because on his watch, thousands of untested rape kits at DPS headquarters in Austin, Texas right now. Never let them let you believe that these abortion bills are about life. If they were about life, then he would care about the lives of these women who are losing their lives. law enforcement. Everyone agrees with that. We also agree that funding should include training so that every member of law enforcement treats every member of our community equally, regardless of race, ethnicity, or any other. And you know, where members of law enforcement who hold this incredibly important position of public trust abuse that, and most importantly, abuse the life and death power that they have over us, those who they were sworn to serve and protect. And I want to make this very clear. This is the exception, and it is not the rule. And when it happens without accountability and justice, not only does it unfairly paint the rest of those officers and members of law enforcement in a way that is not fair to the service they have provided for us, but it diminishes trust in our community. Some no longer feel comfortable with the presence of law enforcement. They're not going to help deter crime or testify at a trial or serve as a witness, and our public safety and security degrades as a result as well. So let us make sure. This is the last thing. And I say this one for last because you're going to hear this the most from the current governor. You know, he's going to find every way to distract from his failures and from legitimate questions that you have for him. I'm not sure if he's ever going to come here and address you in person, but if he does, and should you ask him about the grid, or why we're the least insured state in America, or why our #1 provider of mental health care services today is the county jail system in the state of Texas, he's going to try to get you fighting over CRT, or transgender kids, or this, the border, and immigrants. He wants you to think there is an invasion. That's the word that they use on purpose. His lieutenant governor will even go so far as to traffic in replacement theory and say, if you let those 14,000 Haitians in this state, what do you think drove the shooting and massacre in Buffalo, or that one in El Paso, Texas in 2019? It is this white supremacist replacement theory that these people are working on. You're either part of the problem, or you are good. The adjoining county to El Paso, where 2 men in that community shot a group of migrants who were getting water in a water tank in that community as though they were animals. You don't cage kids or separate them from the parents. You don't do it until you have these people. And they're human, just like us. Think about this. Someone asked this question at Houston.
to Tillotson a little bit earlier today. They said they've got to and it made me think, and I hope to think about this as well. Imagine you're in the same position. You just traveled 2,000 miles up the length of this continent. A lot of it on foot, somewhat inside of a train known as La Bestia, or the Beast. And you're on top of that train, you're not inside. You finally make it here. After weeks or months of travel, you've got your child with you. And you just want to come in because to go back, as you get in, you might not take mine or your place in our society. You do this to survive. And it should force us to think about it. Something that John Lewis was lucky enough to serve in Congress for 60 years used to say. All of us, through our families, at some point or another, came to this country in a different ship. Now, some of us crossed the Bering Strait 15,000 years ago and first settled on this land. A reminder that today we're sitting and standing on indigenous land. Literally kidnapped a continent away, brought across the Atlantic Ocean, forced in bondage to build the wealth and the success of this country, though they were never allowed legally to be able to partake in anything. And today, compounded, their descendants still have a tenth of the wealth of those who are white in this state and white in America. They came here as well. And there are those like my family, the Auroras, in the 19th century. To stay in Ireland was to die in Ireland. There was a famine there at that time that claimed the lives of 1 million people. Whatever today, that's the story of those who are trying to claim asylum, those who got in the back of that 53 lives on that day. What if instead of these stunts and this hateful rhetoric and this violence perpetrated against immigrants, we had real solutions? What if we said, look, if you come here to work, I want there to be a safe, legal, orderly path for you to be able to get here. You come to join family, and you realize that in Mexico, in the Philippines, India, the wait time at the back of the line to join your family member here is 20 years to do it right. And I don't condone anyone breaking the law, but I understand why some people do that. Or those seeking asylum that I just described, to wait in that refugee camp in Matamoros or Ciudad Juarez. It's a 6-year wait until your number is called and they adjudicate your case. What if there was a safe, legal, orderly path that got that done in 6 weeks instead of 6 years? But for those who are here right now, and I've met many people on the campus of Texas State, whose parents made this decision from wherever you first hailed to come to America. And in many cases, the dreamers that I've met refer to their parents as the original dreamers. And they brought you here at 6 months, or 3 years, or 10. And you came here and you gave this country everything you've got. You're achieving at the highest levels here at Texas State. You're working hard, you're playing by the rules, but you're in a purgatory, never able fully to achieve citizenship in this country that you love so much that is just as much yours as it is mine or anyone else's. What if Texas led the way nationally by making sure that every dreamer can become a citizen in this country? That can be our future and our fortune and our fate. All it requires is that over the next 34 days, all of us do all we can with what we have, where we are. And my simple request today is there are a number of volunteers today in yellow reflective vests. They're around the auditorium here. They'll join us outside in a little bit as well. On those clipboards are opportunities to sign up, to go talk to the people who decide the outcome of this society. Because they're not saying how to have from your own heart, in your own words, It is the people of Texas, especially the young people